relation to astronomy communication and how all of that relates to the rest of the scientific bodies of the IAU, and why astronomy communication is the most important part. So for the purposes of this talk, let's imagine a girl. Let's call her Anna. Now, she lives in a rural space with little access to educational resources, but amazing access to dark skies. And her mom hears about some of these workshops that the Office of Astronomy for Development is doing that have to do with astrotourism. So basically using those resources of the dark sky to create a business, to bring people into her village to observe the night sky, and she becomes an entrepreneur in this way. And she, from the Office for Astronomy Outreach, manages to get a telescope. And Anna, as a very small child, is able to look through a telescope and see Saturn for the first time. So she has really early experiences with astronomy and science. Now, her mom doesn't have a background in astronomy, but the Office of Astronomy for Education has teachers training programs, like what we have through the center that's here for the OAE, which is based here in India. And there are, through this opportunity, Anna learns about astronomy through her mother, while her mother is working with the Office of Astronomy for Education researchers. But unfortunately, her schools still don't have the resources that they need in order to teach her and her classmates effectively about astronomy and about science. But her national outreach coordinator, that's through the Office for Astronomy Outreach, has a ton of programs that they've been doing in informal education spaces like libraries, where they bring resources from the OAO, resources from other parts of the IAU, and make them available to Anna and her students. And Anna is particularly excited about astronomy, particularly excited about getting engaged with her national outreach coordinator, so they get them involved with some opportunities, like the Name ExoWorlds competition that we held in 2022, which engaged 12 million people across the planet. And Anna wasn't able to get some people in her village and her community engaged with this amazing effort that happened worldwide. Now, through the Office for Astronomy Outreach, because she's so engaged and because she had access through her National Outreach Coordinator, she was able to hook up with an astronomer from the International Astronomical Union, one of the 13,000 astronomers that we have access through our network. And she was able to have an internship and for the first time have a really authentic scientific experience through this connection with an IAU researcher. And then she went to college. She was able to get a scholarship to go to college to learn about astronomy, to learn about science. But unfortunately, she didn't have the right level of science knowledge that she needed to be competitive with the rest of her peers. So the Office for Young Astronomers offered a workshop, an International School for Young Astronomers, or ISIA, and in her area, where she was able to catch up and learn more, and even more to catch up with her peers, and even more beyond that. So she had more experience and more knowledge of astronomy concepts to excel in her field. And so then she went on to get a PhD, but she got her PhD in a blend between astronomy communication and astronomy policy to bridge different communities together, like policy communities, like technology, and relationships with communities in general. And then she wanted to give back to her community. So she went back to the OAO and she talked to her National Outreach Coordinator and got working again with them to try and give back some of the resources and opportunities that she received back into her community. And this is really the way that the IAU pushes forward the mission of the IAU and our goal to really reach as many people as possible and to bring them into the scientific enterprise. And this is truly the goal of the IAU, to reach the missing millions and perhaps even the missing billions of people who don't necessarily have access and resources, but have a little bit, a tiny hook where they can pull on throughout our vast network of astronomers and our network of astronomy communicators and astronomy educators and people working in development. To bring as many people into the scientific enterprise as possible. And why astronomy? Or rather, before I get into why astronomy, which is a very important thing, but let me tell you a little bit about the IAU. So the International Astronomical Union is, the goal of the IAU is to promote and safeguard the science of astronomy through research, through its 13,000 researchers that represent 92 countries, I believe, and it's through communication, through its various offices, through education and development. Now we have an executive committee. You might recognize one of these names on this list. I think one of them was actually a speaker at IUCA recently, Brian Schmidt, who's a Nobel Prize winner. So we have many prominent researchers that are part of this network. And we have the IAU is organized into divisions, and those are organized into commissions and subsequently into working groups. And we also have offices and centers that are based around the globe. For example, we have our the center office is in France, in Paris. We have the Center for the Protection of the Dark and Quiet Sky, which is also, the headquarters is in Paris, but it's actually a global collaboration. We have the Office of Astronomy for Development, which is based in South Africa. We have the Office of Astronomy for Education, which is based in Germany. OIA, which is the Office for Young Astronomers, based in Norway. And then, of course, my office, which is based in Japan. We actually also have another center, which is the Minor Planet Center, and that kind of maintains all of the observations of small bodies, so like asteroids and other small objects in the solar system. So all of the observations that we have of those objects get sent to the Minor Planet Center first, and they maintain all of that information. And that's based at the Center for Astrophysics at Harvard in Massachusetts in the United States. And so with this, we really have kind of a layered approach from the IAU. We have our foundations at the outset, and that's public engagement, education, development. These are our centers and our offices. And they're all rooted in diversity, equity, and inclusion, making sure that there's access to resources, to opportunities across all swaths of society and across the globe. And that includes professional development and community engagement to build capacity in as many ways as possible. And of course, this is through international collaboration. We have 92 countries that are represented just by our researchers, but our network actually expands far beyond that with our national outreach coordinators and our national astronomy education coordinators as well. And then this all bleeds into, of course, the science of the IAU and bringing as many people around the world into the IAU science as possible. So the ecosystem that we've established comprises public engagement, development, education, capacity building, institutional buy-in, which is very important, and trust and support in science. But this is, of course, always much more complicated than it seems. It's not just a full circle. Everything is related to everything else. And of course, if you stop one thing, you stop all of it. And I think, in particular, if you stop public engagement, then the whole thing breaks down. Now, this is my very biased perspective, being the director of an office for public engagement. But what I hope to prove to you today is that this is truly, truly the case. So why astronomy? Now, astronomy has the really uncanny ability to capture people's attention. Now, I'm sure you all know this. This is something that you've seen before, something you've experienced before. But astronomy, for people who don't necessarily have access, don't have prior knowledge of the universe, of the glory of our night sky, can approach science and approach astronomy from multiple different angles. You can approach it from the humanities, from art, from music, from science, from culture and history. It really brings together many, many different avenues for people to say, this is something that I might be able to participate in. And it really, through that, inspires awe in people. And there's a lot of science around awe. Now, awe itself identifies a knowledge gap. And not just a knowledge gap, it identifies a way that your brain can't quite reconcile the information that it's receiving with the information that you already have. And so it has to reconstruct inside your mind the way that you have constructed information. So it requires a lot of critical thinking and scientific thinking to be able to process awe and understand truly what you're looking at. And that scientific thinking is supported by role models. which impact your ability to see yourself in a particular position. They speak to your identity. They speak to race, gender, culture, history, religion, many different aspects of everyday life that then get reflected back to you by someone that you see and admire. And that support that you receive from seeing some role model and receiving resources from that role model supports scientific thinking, but then also STEM identity. And then, of course, your STEM identity is linked to whether or not you think you can do STEM and you can participate in STEM, and linked to the uptake of STEM moving forward. But who really gets to engage with science? Who has these opportunities? Who chooses to engage with science? And when we have a group or community that doesn't think that science is meant for them, they don't see it as something that they can engage with, that they should engage with, then you have some kind of exclusion event happening. And it impacts their self-efficacy, their ability to see themselves as being a part and parcel of the scientific process. And that drives particular behaviors and intentions around engaging with science, which can change their interest and motivation and attitude about science. And that is all, this whole cycle is related to self-efficacy and belief in whether or not someone can engage with or should engage with science in some way. And that doesn't necessarily mean research astronomy. That could be going to a science museum, participating in an event at a library, or even talking to a teacher about science. This is something that pervades basically every aspect of society that a student might be, or even an adult might be engaging with on a regular basis. And this is all to do with science capital. This kind of relates to what you know. So, oops, sorry. What you know about science. What is your science literacy? How you think, what your attitudes and your values are about science. Who you know, what your networks are, what role models do you have, and what contacts do you have within science, and then what you do. What's your science-related behavior? Do you go to the library to your local event? Do you go to your teacher to ask more about science? Do you attend astronomy club lectures? Do you engage with science museums, and so on? And all of this is really related to trust. So bringing more people into the scientific enterprise is really integral to improving science capital worldwide. So building trust itself relies on competence. So whether or not you appear to be knowledgeable, warmth, whether or not you appear to be easy to come to and to understand, and integrity and openness. And then your attitudes about science are related to whether or not you trust the person that is teaching you, trust the person that you're talking to, and trust their ability to give you reliable knowledge and to give it to you with grace. And that trust and identity is really important as well. Because it's often the case that it's much easier to believe something or to accept information from someone who shares a cultural identity with you in some way, some axis of your identity. Maybe it's gender, maybe it's race, maybe it's many axes of your identity that you see reflected back at you from someone who's teaching you, from someone who's giving you information. It's much easier for you to accept that information from someone who you relate to in some way. And who engages in your own cultural context. And that cultural context can really change the way that people interpret and perceive information. And this doesn't just go for the way that people perceive information from a public sense, but this also is the way that you perceive information and perceive your own data as well. And that's an entirely different conversation that I would love to have later if you have time. But if you have these positive experiences with science and you engage with people who understand your own cultural perspective, that changes the way that you perceive science and can really change the way that you perceive yourself as a scientist or as a future scientist. So trust really, having trust and boosting trust and building trust with your communities can change the way that people engage in critical thinking. It can diversify the STEM workforce, and it creates an information and policy environment that is resilient to misinformation. And when we're talking about misinformation, this is a really important point, because it's not just about science, it's about beliefs as well. And when you're having conversations about misinformation, you're trying to combat misinformation, you need to be very sensitive about the way in which you're approaching it. It's not just talking about facts, it's talking about the way that people have constructed information. And I really love this quote from Christine Matsuda. She participated in a focus group that I was running a few years ago. And she said that it's when we need to have a really difficult conversation where problem solving is required, that having long-standing trusted relationships is paramount. So having trusted relationships within your community, engaging people through community leaders. And I know that this is a lot of the work that many people in this room are doing. I've been listening to these talks and looking at the posters outside of people doing incredible work within their own communities and reaching out to really rural places that don't have access to the kind of schools and the kind of education that they might have in more urban areas. And doing it through community leaders to establish trust and to establish a continued connection with these communities. And that's really deeply important for getting more people excited about and into the scientific enterprise. So what can we do about it? And that's where the Office for Astronomy Outreach comes in, or at least we play a small role. I don't want to necessarily say that we are the end-all and be-all of all of this. This is, we are contributing to the effort that you all are leading, and that's a really important and beautiful thing. So the IAU OAO, I'll call it that from now on, just the OAO, has two main arms. We have a public engagement arm where we directly communicate with the public, and we have a professional development arm in which we focus on science communicators and giving them resources and opportunities that boost their professional development and then give them more opportunity to reach more people around the world. And so for the first part, I will focus on public engagement. So everything we do in the OAO is kind of mediated through our network of national outreach coordinators. We have about 120, maybe a little bit more, 125 or so countries that are represented in this network, with more than 400 people that are in the network. And these are astronomy communicators that are located worldwide, who bring the opportunities, the resources, the materials from the OAO and snowball that out into their communities so that we reach as many people as we possibly can worldwide. And I will say that one of our hosts here, Samir Durde, is a national outreach coordinator for India. So if you can wave, yes. And yes, and there are three national outreach coordinators for India that are all here today. So thank you for all of the work that you do, and for being here and for leading the charge here in IUCA at this conference this week. So I say a global network with local reach because of this snowball effect that they have to bring astronomy engagement to as many people within their local communities as possible. So we have three global themes that we typically stick to throughout the year: women and girls in astronomy, engaging in inclusive astronomy communication, and then promoting dark skies. And so Women and Girls in Astronomy supports and promotes the participation of women in astronomy and girls who potentially might want to be astronomy communicators or astronomy, but really this is about getting people interested in astronomy and then pushing them out into science in general, because astronomy is in this way kind of a gateway science. It brings people into the idea that they can engage with science and then pushes them forward to seeing other opportunities that are out there. So the main thing that we're doing this year with Women and Girls in Astronomy ourselves is running a series on women in astrobiology. So women who are participating in research in astrobiology and kind of leading the charge in understanding not only life on Earth, but also how life can evolve on other planets. We really focus throughout the year on inclusive astronomy communication. So many of our national outreach coordinators do work with the blind and the visually impaired, with those who are hearing impaired and other kinds of disabilities, to bring them the opportunities that they might not otherwise have to engage with astronomy, to really understand astronomy. One example of this that I find really interesting is descriptive or rich descriptions of astronomy images. So not just having alt text for images, but giving really culturally relevant descriptions of what images look like. So for example, there's an image of I think it's a pulsar with a jet, and it looks like it has swept out a full kind of ring around it. And in one version of this, they talk about it looking like tires in the snow. But if you live in a place where there's never been snow, you have no idea what that looks like or have no tangible experience of what that is. So our translators don't just translate the text, but they also translate the cultural interpretation. So they talk about maybe tracks in sand. And so in that way, you're not just getting a literal translation, you're also getting a cultural translation as well. And that is really deeply important and something that our network pays a lot of attention to. And then of course, dark skies. Everything that we do with astronomy engagement, has to do in some way with dark skies. And this can be protecting our dark skies, like the image that I showed in the beginning. But also talking about light pollution abatement as well. So if you live in a really populated city like I do in Tokyo, talking about different ways that you can bring municipalities into the conversation about reducing light pollution and having some kind of ordinances that can start to restore dark skies. We also have one project that we do every year, which is called 100 Hours of Astronomy. And this really builds coalition across the globe of people coming together to experience public engagement worldwide together through this kind of joint experience, cross-cultural experience as well. And this last year, what we did, we had our national outreach coordinators, but we also engaged more people around the globe through these nodes, where we had applicants submit proposals to be a node for participation. We selected 137 nodes that spanned 59 countries. There were more than 300 events that took place over 4 days, and more than 100 of our NOCs participated as well. We had a 24-hour live stream, and we reached N people, because N is really impossible to measure, but it's a very high number, I can assure you. And like I said in my introduction, we had our Name Exoworlds competition in 2022. Which is a really unique opportunity. The IAU is the only body that's kind of given the authority to name and catalog astronomical objects. So this includes stars and exoplanets, and one of the most common emails that I get in my inbox is, can I name a star? Usually to celebrate someone being absolutely in love with another person. They want to name a star after them, or maybe memorialize someone who has passed away. And this competition gives people a chance to immortalize some part of their lives and their culture in the night sky. So in 2022, and we will host something similar to this probably in 2027, we had 91 countries participating. We had almost 9,000 team members, and then almost 12 million people engaged worldwide in this project. And this is a really incredible number, because it shows that just one single event can engage a huge number of people, can have a really amazing impact. And these were events that highlighted the importance of exoplanets and stars and understanding these systems, why they're so important. And things like astrobiology also kind of played into all of these events. So it gives people the opportunity to engage with astronomy. It humanizes astronomy in a really important way. And it gives these communities the opportunity to bring their culture into the foreground, which is something that's deeply necessary, especially if you don't necessarily see astronomy as being something that is for you. And we also have this opportunity for the National Outreach Coordinators to engage with each other. So to build cross-national, cross-cultural, cross-language work to address some problem or some challenge that they're facing in their own communities, and to work together to solve that problem, or to solve maybe some tiny piece of it. And this image really just shows how interconnected all of our national outreach coordinators are. All of the, they might be working really hard within their countries and locally, but they also engage with people all around the world. And this shows that there's not just this snowballing effect in a region, but also a snowballing effect that happens worldwide. And so not only are the people being reached locally and in their own culture, but they're also engaging with other cultures worldwide, which makes us all more interconnected as a global society. So now I want to talk a little bit about our professional development work that we do. And this all kind of falls within the umbrella of communicating astronomy with the public, which I think of as really the professionalization of astronomy communication. And we have several aspects of this, one of which is our Communicating Astronomy with the Public journal. This is the only peer-reviewed, fully open access, so that's free to read and free to publish in, journal that's dedicated to astronomy communication. We really focus on ideas. So when you submit an article to CAP Journal, we understand that this is a burgeoning field. Astronomy communication is not something that's typically thought of as being a profession. It's in many institutions, it's something that's an addition to the research that you do. In many places, it's not considered something that you would go to school to do or something like that. And so we understand that many of the people that who might participate in CAP Journal are leaders of astronomy clubs who don't have maybe academic experience, but they want to talk about and they want to publish the work that they've done in this paper. In this journal. And they write to us and they say, I want to publish this work, but I need a little bit of help. Maybe they don't feel comfortable writing in an academic way. Maybe they don't feel comfortable writing in English. And so we provide that editorial help to get them to the point where they can publish so that they can get their ideas out into the astronomy communication community. And we're really building capacity in that way. And that's really the way that we try to make this journal as inclusive and as accessible as possible. And we're also working on different ways that we can make the information that's on our website and the abstracts and the journal articles themselves available in the original languages and then other languages as well, not just English. We, of course, have our CAP conferences, which take place every 2 years. And this is a meeting place for astronomy communicators. We will have our next conference that is in May of this year, which will be in Armenia, in Yerevan, and online. I believe registration is still open, so if you're interested in joining us, please do so and check out our website. You can find right here. And this is, I think, maybe the most inspiring conference that you could go to. From my perspective anyway. This is what brought me into the realm of astronomy communication and seeing it as really something that could push me forward into the world of science communication and astronomy communication. It is a place where people come and talk about the work that they've been doing, much like this opportunity that we have here today and this week in IAU. But it's bringing people together from all over the world. So you have opportunities to talk with someone from the other side of the planet that you otherwise wouldn't see and understand the connections that exist between the work that you do and the work that they do, even if you're in completely different contexts. And it's a really beautiful thing to see and to be a part of. Again, we have our CAP conference that's happening in May of 2026. And we also have a special symposium from the IAU. This is not technically the OAO, but we are all working on it, so it might as well be the OAO. And this is talking about innovative research and techniques in astronomy communication. And this is not just for communicating astronomy with the public. This is for astronomers to communicate their science with themselves, with each other, with policymakers, with funders, with other astronomers that might not be inside their field. And this kind of communication is so deeply important to pushing the academic field of astronomy forward. And I think it's something that is not necessarily as highlighted as it otherwise should be in the astronomy community, in educational and academic spaces, I should say. And so this is the first symposium of its kind that's hosted by the IAU. And we will be bringing together not only astronomers, astronomy communicators, but also science communication researchers, so that there's a bridge between what is often siloed, the work that's being done to promote science communication, the work that's being done to practically in science communication, and then also the needs of the astronomy community and the astronomy communicator community, and bringing them all together in conversation with one another. So this will be a really exciting opportunity, and registration, abstract submission, and grant submission will be open in the next month. So hopefully we'll see you all there. And that'll be with me in Tokyo. So come on down to Tokyo. And of course, we want to build community. We want to build up capacity in astronomy communication. And one of the ways that we've tried to do that is through community of practice. So this is really bridging the gap between researchers and practitioners, because there is immense value in the work that researchers in astronomy communication and science communication do, and value in the work that practitioners do and have been doing for hundreds of years. And so bringing these communities together, getting them in conversation with each other, only will push the community forward, will push the profession forward. And so this is also, the impetus for this was because CAP conference happens every 2 years, there's often kind of a lull in that interstitial year. Where there's not a lot of conversation happening, and there isn't then kind of a push of the momentum that you have at the end of CAP, at the end of one CAP into another. And so this is meant to keep that momentum going and get people more in conversation with each other, to spark new ideas and learn new things and figure out new ways to address different challenges that we might have within the community. And something that we're working on right now, it's not fixed yet, we have pieces of it that are coming together, is what we're calling CAP Academy. And this is evidence-based training for astronomy communicators, but it's not just training, it's also providing opportunities for internships, for fellowships, for young astronomers, young astronomy communicators who are interested in participating in the work that the OAO does, and getting them that experience so they can move on into the community and continue their professional life as either astronomers with proper training to go out and do communication work, or as astronomy communicators or science communicators. So this is going to be something that comes up in the future. We do have an internship program right now, which is a relationship with Leiden University. It's something that we're hoping to grow so that we bring more interns in and find more ways to support them. And then the training program will be available online for people to participate in. And as it becomes available, we'll be putting that on our website as well, so you can learn more about that at a later time. So communicating astronomy with the public, I will say that this with is really important, because when we're talking about engaging people with science, you want to get people interested in science, engaging them with astronomy, getting them to tinker and to understand and to really feel the effects of the science that they're doing, feel the tangible impact that the research has, and the impact that it can have on their life. That is a desperately important part of getting people to think that they are capable of doing science, and just communicating at the public or to the public doesn't necessarily get to that next level of engagement. And so through this, we really try to do, or rather through our journal, our conference, our community, and then our academy, we really try to bring all of the astronomy communicators, whether they be in a master's degree program or tenured or emeritus professor, to come into the community and learn more about how they can be better communicators, and how they can learn from the communicators that are working around the world. And so when we work with academic institutions, and I think this is really important, to prioritize and integrate astronomy communication into the scientific process, very much like the way that IUCA has been doing with all of the science engagement work that it's been prioritizing for decades. We can create a professional development opportunity that is flexibly altered and can be implemented locally. So it's not just presenting training programs that are relevant in one part of the world and not necessarily in another part of the world. It's something that is modular, that can be changed and altered so that it fits within any particular location. That provides the framework for communicators to develop locally relevant communities that actually serve the communities in which they're working, and reimagines the pathways to positive experiences with science that support science capital worldwide, while fostering the right environment, giving the right tools, the right opportunities, the right resources to build trust in science and scientific institutions to flourish in society. And so I will leave it there and just say that what we're trying to do ultimately is make astronomy for everyone, everywhere. Thank you. That is an exceptionally good point. And one that there are a few that I know of, and I'm sure many, many more, organizations that are looking to address light pollution abatement and prevention while also maintaining safety. So one of them is Light Justice, which is based out of the United States. And one of the things that they talk about is having timers or motion sensors on lights. And even, you can have light, if you have a street lamp with a particular shape shield on the top, that can prevent light pollution because it's preventing light excess from going out into the sky, but you are still providing light for below. So that's two ways that you can address light pollution while still maintaining safety. But I think another way that you can kind of address it without changing anything is by having kind of like sidewalk observational opportunities. So even in a lot of urban areas, you can maybe see a few stars. And if you go to a street corner that doesn't maybe have like a direct light on it, you can see maybe a few more stars. And then you can get people engaged at the corner where they're standing. You can bring more people into the conversation and make it much more accessible to many, many people. And I know that there's a lot of people who are doing this kind of work, sidewalk astronomy. I've seen it at many IAU meetings and also CAP. And I think that's also a way that you can make sure that people feel safe while also getting them interested in and engaged with astronomy. And then you can maybe start another conversation about how we can expand this and how we can, like what creative solutions can we come up with to make sure that we have this safety that's absolutely necessary, but we're also preserving our dark skies.
In one of your earlier slides, you mentioned that you need to be cognizant of culture, respect the culture. But when you find that some of the cultural aspects are superstitious, how can you deal with that, making sure that you are not completely confronting them, but also trying to make sure that you do the right thing?
So I think that's actually a great question for many of the people in the room. Uh, the work that the OAO does really just tries to provide the environment in which those conversations can happen. But I think there's a lot of really incredible work that's happening that, posters that I've seen and talks that I know have happened that discusses that very thing. And I think it is interesting to, I think one person I spoke to, and I'm sorry I don't remember your name, but talked about how the scientific or the scientific resources, the historically scientific resources that exist, aren't incorrect. They're just being interpreted wrong. And so it's about breaking down the belief of the incorrect interpretation of that scientific resource. Another way that I've seen kind of historical and cultural interpretations of astronomy being embedded into astronomy communication is by trying to show people how the cultures that they come from were very early and very incredible scientists, and using that kind of cultural point as a touchstone to get them to talk more about the other, maybe more scientifically accurate, you might say, aspects of astronomy. So I think maybe turning the coin around a little bit is what is necessary. You don't want to approach someone and say, you're doing it wrong, because then they're gonna, the natural reaction is to defend yourself, right? So you need to, I think, approach it in a way that changes slightly the way that they think so that they can approach it from a slightly different angle. But again, many of the people in this room are far more qualified to talk about this than I am.
Hi Kelly, thank you for the very inspiring talk. My question might be very different from what we have been discussing. So I come from I am an astronomer. So the question is, what does IAU do to kind of promote astronomers doing public outreach? Because like either a person with astronomy background traditionally can become academic, or they go to industry. So if a person wants to come into this kind of field in the publish or perish kind of environment, it becomes quite difficult. Like a person has to choose if they want to keep being a scientist or if they just want to do the outreach. So there is very less opportunity in most of the institutions to balance this kind of scientific profile. So is there some program in future plan for kind of incentivizing astronomers who are interested in outreach by maybe changing the matrices that we kind of judge the scientists on as of now?
Yeah, I really appreciate this point because I lived that. When I finished my PhD, I had kind of like a bifurcation point. I could either go down the publish or perish postdoc route, and I would probably still be a postdoc, or go and dedicate myself to education and public engagement. And I decided to go in this direction because it's truly where I knew my heart lied. But I still do feel tugged in the opposite direction. Not opposite, but in the other direction. So I understand and appreciate this question. But I think, so the IAU can be doing and should be doing more. We have a division of the IAU that's dedicated to astronomy, culture, education, and outreach. And then there's a commission called the Communicating Astronomy with the Public Commission. And so they are looking for ways to better serve the IAU community. And I think, and I've been pushing for this to be something that is central to what that commission should be doing. I think what would be great is if you sent an email to the president of that commission and told her that this is something that the commission should be focusing on. This is something that the community needs, because I think you're absolutely right, that we need to have some kind of statement from the IAU that says this is deeply important to the scientific process. It's not something that's additional. It is, your research is not complete until it's been communicated, and there's a deep importance of the work of astronomy communicators and astronomer communicators as well.
Again, thank you for the wonderful talk. You mentioned one of your favorite quotes about having difficult conversations and, in that case, having the trust of the communicator. So what kind of difficult conversations are you talking about? Coming from an astronomy perspective especially, is it something that someone earlier mentioned, like the beliefs that people are talking about?
Yeah.
And what can a communicator do in that case that you think that we can as astronomy communicators?
Yeah, I think this applies in a really broad context. It could be a cultural thing. If you have a community that believes that you shouldn't go outside when there's an eclipse because it's dangerous or there's something's going to happen if you do, and then they don't have the opportunity to observe that phenomenon. How do you approach it how do you approach their cultural perspective respectfully, but then also get across your message? That is a very difficult conversation to have. Talking to someone who believes that the earth is flat is a very difficult conversation to have, not because it's culturally sensitive, but because they're usually so entrenched in their ideas that they're often not willing to listen to what you might have to say. But it very much depends on how you say it and how you approach the conversation. So I think that's where the trust comes in. That's where the trusted relationships come in. Because if some random person on the street comes up to me and tells me that my worldview is wrong, I'm going to get really defensive. I'm going to say, no, you're wrong, and then we're going to get in an argument about it. But if my mom comes up to me and says, your worldview is wrong, I'm going to feel more inclined to have a gentle conversation with her. I'm going to feel more like I have something to lose if I get defensive. And if you kind of bring in that trusted relationship into the conversation, then I think you have more of an opportunity to change minds and to combat the misinformation that's everywhere on the internet.
Hi team, thanks for the nice talk. So I just wanted to ask you, are there any options or opportunities in OAO to support projects which are already being supported by other wings of IAU, like OAG, for example, in the past, or so that if OAG is not able to continue the support, we can get the support from OAO? Is there a possibility?
So the OAO offers support for its network, for the National Outreach Coordinators. It doesn't offer a public call for anybody to submit an application for, if that's your meaning. There are ways, of course, to learn about the projects that are happening and provide in-kind support, which is really getting in touch with the National Outreach Coordinators, learning how you can get involved, learning the different projects that they're a part of, and the work that you can do to contribute to that, and how what you're doing can contribute to that. But as far as financial support for the public, that's not something that we do.
This is following on one of the previous questions. So if you look at the membership of the commissions of the IAU that are involved with public outreach and so on, many of them have a salary and a job that doesn't come from public outreach. So I many other countries, it's extremely difficult to get a job if you have a purely science educator, science astronomy communicator kind of profile. So what is it that the IAU can do to change this profiling completely? And this is related to the question of what can we do so that you know, we're not evaluated by the publish or perish metric. We have some other broader way to do this. If there's a sort of international consensus, there is a greater chance that some countries at least will change their policy. Because right now what is happening is a very inefficient way of doing things. Many astronomers, professional astronomers are doing public outreach, but they're doing it on top of their day job or night job. And that they don't simply have the training or the time to do this properly. On the other hand, you have a second population of people who are excellent in astronomy communication. They may be very well trained, they may know their job really well, and you have many examples of that in this room. But unfortunately in our system, we can't give them a job, and all of them are many of them are working freelance or on contract work. So what can the IAU OAO do specifically to change this perception?
Well, I think this can't just come from the OAO. It needs to be a kind of unilateral effort of all the astronomers, all 13,000 astronomers in the IAU, to say this is something that's necessary. Now, I'm going to state my opinion from a Kelly Blumenthal perspective, not from a IAU perspective, because I might get myself in trouble. But what I think is necessary is for the IAU to accept a resolution that states that public engagement is an absolutely essential part of the scientific process, and that it should be equally valued as scientific research in academic institutions. And then that would get passed by during a General Assembly, like the one that'll happen in 2027. And then if it's passed, that will be the majority of member countries will have said that, yes, we agree with this. And then what's necessary after that is to have some kind of way of measuring whether or not institutions actually act on that resolution. So the member countries are represented by national members, which are institutions that are like a governance body for science in the country. And so they're not necessarily academic institutions themselves. They kind of organize and coordinate academic institutions. So they need to be communicating to their academic institutions that this resolution has been passed and that it's something that we need to be taking seriously. And then those institutions need to communicate to all of their researchers that this resolution has been passed and something that should be taken seriously. So it's not just something that needs to come from the top down, which is absolutely necessary, but it also needs to be a bottom-up kind of grassroots effort as well. Because without the support of PhD advisors, deans, presidents of universities, it's not going to be something that graduate students want to take up, postdocs want to take up. It's not going to be something that professors who are applying for jobs want to even mention on their CVs or take up as a part of the work that they're doing. So it needs to come from both angles in order for anything to be established. And that's not, I mean, we can certainly help. And I think a lot of the work that we're trying to do with astronomy, the professionalization of astronomy communication will help with that, but it's not the end all and be all. It has to be everybody in the IAU coming together.
Okay, so of course there will be other opportunities to interact. So on the behalf of IUCA and the IUCA Public Outreach team, I'd like to thank Kelly again for this informative talk and taking time to share all this with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.